I snuck into my CEO wife's company to surprise her and ran straight into a group of male assistants, who were getting torn apart and left in tears, so I volunteered to deliver the documents for them. I pushed open the conference room door, and the woman sitting at the head of the table was radiating pure ice. The moment I walked in, every female executive in the room shot me a look of total pity. They all figured this new secretary was about to get destroyed and had clearly been pushed out as cannon fodder. The head assistant was frantically signaling me to hurry up and hand over the documents. I walked up and quietly set them on the table, and Yunyan was holding a slender cigarette between her fingers. The faint smoke drifted right into my face, but she never smokes in front of me at home. The unfamiliar smell tickled my throat, and I could not hold back a small cough. She did not even look up, and her voice was as cold as crushed ice. Why does it take so long to deliver a few documents? And everyone around me immediately sucked in a sharp breath. Everyone was thinking to themselves, here it comes. The storm is about to hit, and I forced myself to stay composed. I spoke up and explained there was a small situation on the way, so I got a little held up. The moment Yunyan heard my bright voice laced with a smile, her hand froze mid-cigarette. She looked up and her eyes landed right on my smiling ones, and the hostility visibly melted off her. The conference room went dead silent, and the female executives looked like their jaws were about to hit the floor. Everyone was completely baffled about what was happening. The CEO actually did not blow up, and this was definitely not how anyone expected this to go. I flashed a sly grin and lightly nudged her shin with the tip of my foot. I lowered my voice and let a little charm slip in. CEO Yu, is there anything else you need? And she immediately stubbed out the cigarette and said simply, go make me a coffee. As you wish, CEO, and 10 minutes later I came back with the coffee. The tension in the conference room had eased quite a bit, and I silently placed the coffee beside her. She took a small sip and tilted her head, gesturing for me to find a seat. I immediately sat down right next to her and stared at her with bright, shining eyes. The meeting continued, and Yunyan's hair trigger temper was completely switched off. She was so calm and warm, it was like a different person entirely, and all the female executives exhaled in relief. But sitting through those dry reports, the drowsiness hit me like a wave. My eyelids were fighting each other like crazy, and the hand propping up my chin slipped. I actually just dozed right off, and everyone in the room thought I was finished. Slacking off during the CEO's meeting was basically asking to get fired on the spot, but Yunyan clearly saw it and pretended not to notice. Everyone was completely thrown off and started whispering that this guy must be the CEO's secret lover. Just then, someone finally let out a hushed gasp. Wait, is that not Mr. Yu, the CEO's husband? And everyone suddenly put it all together? But that only made things more confusing because rumors said the two of them had already called it quits. Then out of nowhere, my head suddenly lurched forward, nearly smashing into the edge of the table, when a warm hand steadily caught my face. Yunyan gently stroked my head and quietly told the assistant to take me upstairs to rest. I barely cracked my eyes open and mumbled, babe, how much longer is this meeting going to go? Yunyan's voice melted soft enough to pour, and she said, be good, just 5 more minutes. But in under 3 minutes, she actually left an entire room of female executives standing there, and walked out of the conference room holding my hand while I had my head down, texting and not watching where I was going. I looked up and saw she had already walked far ahead, so I called out loud, hey woman, do you not want your husband anymore? And that thunderous shout froze every single person on the entire floor, and my stomach dropped. I thought to myself, I am so dead. She must be beyond mortified, but Yunyan stopped walking and turned around. Not only was she not upset, she reached her hand out toward me with pure affection. Give me your hand, and I immediately tucked my hand into her warm palm like a good boy. She led me into her office, and I immediately held up the thermos like I was presenting a prize. Ta-da, your devoted husband has delivered a lovingly packed lunch, and her deep eyes locked onto me as she asked, did you make this yourself? And my ears went hot, but I kept my cool. It is edible, so it definitely will not kill you, and she took a sip of the soup. She found it rich and flavorful, even though the side dishes were a little lightly seasoned. She still ate every single bite with obvious enjoyment, and by then the office outside had already exploded. The female executives swarmed the head assistant, firing off gossip questions about why Mr. Yu had shown up. Did he really come all the way here just to bring CEO Yu lunch? And the news spread through the whole company like wildfire. That legendary cold and ruthless CEO who terrified everyone was not fierce at all in front of her husband, and even let him use her as a pillow when he dozed off, and got called out loud in public, and still had nothing but adoration on her face. This was not a couple falling apart. This was a woman completely spoiling her husband rotten. The whole company started hoping I would show up every day, because whenever I appeared, their terrifying boss Yu instantly became a gentle little lamb. But the moment this workaholic set down her chopsticks, she completely ignored me, and buried herself right back in a pile of files, so I sat on the couch, watching her run herself ragged, and decided not to let her have her way. So I got up, and hopped right up onto her big desk and said, Yunyan, are you just gonna forget your baby is here? She did not even look up, and her hand kept writing at full speed. I will give you my attention in just a little bit. Hang on. I swung my legs on purpose, and let one shoe drop to the floor with a thud. She had no choice but to bend down, pick it up, and put it back on for me. But the next second I kicked it off again and let my foot wander and nudge at her knee. Right at that moment her phone rang and she answered it, while shooting me a look that said knock it off. I completely ignored it and sat there holding my drink, batting my most innocent eyes while my foot got more and more out of line. She kept her voice low into the phone and said please go on, but silently mouthed at me, stop it right now. Not only did I not stop, I propped my other foot up too. The next second she suddenly hung up the phone, and those dark eyes locked dead onto me. Having fun, Mr. Yu and I grinned with complete satisfaction, obviously, and she suddenly curved her lips, flashing a dangerous little smile, and said then let's keep going. Before I could react, she lifted me right off the desk and pulled me straight into the back room, and by the time I came back to my senses, she was crouching down, wiping my leg with a towel, and those faint pink marks were enough to make anyone's face burn. And after she finished, she gripped my ankle and said quietly, Mr. Yu's legs really do live up to the reputation, you absolute menace. I was so flustered I tried to pull my foot back, but she held on even tighter. She leaned down and pressed a kiss to my knee, and her voice came out low and tight. Mr. Yu, a woman who has been holding herself back, is not someone you want to provoke. You are playing with fire. Do not blame me for what happens. And I let out a soft scoff, completely unconvinced, and said, well, whose fault is it for leaving me sitting here while you worked? She immediately backed down and said it was my fault, I am sorry. I took the opportunity to hook my arms around her neck and said, then stay with me for 30 minutes before going back to work. I am sleepy and looking at the helpless affection swimming in her eyes. I knew I had won this round again, and for the entire week that followed. I came every single day to bring her homemade soup, and the whole company's vibe felt like spring had rolled in. Even the head assistant could not stop beaming, and then one day during lunch break, I was dead asleep in the break room when a faint sound startled me awake. The woman who had been beside me was long gone, and I strained my ears to listen. My cheeks instantly flushed hot, and I tiptoed quietly to the bathroom door. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it could crack my ribs, but the person inside seemed to have eyes in the back of her head. Her cool, slightly husky voice drifted out and said, "The door is unlocked if you want to look, just come in. Who would want to watch you in there?" Have some shame, and I played it tough on the outside. But my ears were hot enough to fry an egg, and she went quiet for about 10 seconds. Then she suddenly asked, "What soups have you been bringing these past few days?" I counted on my fingers very carefully and listed black silky chicken and sea cucumber soup and braised old duck soup. And Yukamiya bark with pork kidney soup, and after she heard my whole list, she waited a long pause, and then made a quiet sound, and that single quiet response made my heart skip for no reason. A bold idea flashed through my mind, and just as I was about to sneak a little closer, her low husky voice rang out again and said, "Do not move, Mr. Yu, I am giving you 10 seconds. Back away from the door right now, 10-9-8, and I had no choice but to retreat obediently back to the bed. I had just picked up my phone when a message notification popped up from my buddy. "Hey man, I am heading back to the city tomorrow for a jewelry campaign shoot. Already booked your flight and I scored Helen concert tickets too. We are going to have an absolute blast," and I was smiling as I typed back. When Union came out of the bathroom wrapped in a bathrobe and I looked up and gave her a big grin. "All done, CEO Yu, time to head back out and take on the world." But she calmly settled onto the edge of the bed and asked if Mr. Yu had any issues with a certain aspect of her performance lately. I immediately clutched the blanket and said, "What on earth are you talking about?" She slowly leaned in and pinched my chin and said, "Do not cook tomorrow. If you keep feeding me all those fortifying soups, something is going to give," and I finally told her. I picked up a new job and I have to fly back to the city first thing tomorrow morning. I grabbed her bathrobe collar and tilted my face up to look at her. "While I am gone, will you miss me?" My eyes were full of hopeful light, and she did not even hesitate. Her lips parted and she let out a single word. Yes, and just that one word set off 1,000 fireworks inside my chest, and early the next morning I flew back to the city. This time it was a campaign shoot for a top French luxury brand with exhibitions during the day and dinners at night. I was running non-stop and did not get a single chance to check my phone all day. I had no idea the woman back home was going out of her mind with worry, and at the dinner I got absolutely hammered. I woke up in the middle of the night half out of it and reached over to the empty space beside me. On pure reflex I called Yunian, and the moment the call connected, I immediately started going off demanding to know if she was out running around again. Still not home this late, and there was only a brief silence on the other end. But she was remarkably patient and said, "Mr. Yu, you flew back to the city yourself this morning," and that was when it suddenly hit me where I actually was. I sobered up halfway in an instant, and my voice immediately went soft, tinged with a little complaint, and I said, "Babe, my head is spinning so bad." Her cool voice wrapped itself in warmth, and she said, "Be good, close your eyes and sleep." I refused and said, "I want you to sing me to sleep. And it has to be a Cantonese song," and Yunian sounded like she had a headache. I am completely tone deaf, and I did not care one bit. I insisted on hearing her sing, and she finally gave a little and said, "How about I play piano for you instead?" And before long, soft piano music came floating through the phone. She played the most tender melody as if afraid to disturb me. But not only did I not fall asleep when the piece ended, I was even more wide awake than before. I hugged my pillow and blurted out into the phone, "Yunian, I want to kiss you, and I want you." My voice was barely above a whisper, but I knew she had heard every single word crystal clear. The other end of the phone went terrifyingly quiet, and I got a little flustered and worked up. "Why are you not saying anything?" And I told her, "It is your lucky day that I want to kiss you." "Fine, if you do not care, then forget it." And the second those words left my mouth, I hung up, and the moment I did, I was basically already out cold. When she called back, there was nobody left to answer, and the next morning, my buddy Lu Qing physically dragged me out of bed, and the hangover had my head feeling like it was splitting open. I squinted and could barely move, but he was grinning and handing me some hangover medicine. He said, "Hey man, CEO Yu has given orders the second you wake up, call her back immediately," and I groggily grabbed my phone, only to find a pile of missed calls and a message from Yunian. Just one single word, okay? The next second, the memories from last night came crashing back like a wave. I had not only called to check up on her and acted all clingy and needy, I had actually blurted out that I wanted to kiss her, and I yanked the blanket straight over my head. I have never been so embarrassed in my life, and after a long pep talk with myself, I slowly called her back, and the call connected almost immediately. Her cool voice came through first and said, "Awake." I answered with the tiniest sound, barely louder than a breath. She said, "If your head hurts, remember to take the hangover medicine," and I obediently agreed. But what was coming could not be avoided, and Yunian calmly and unhurriedly asked, "Do you remember what you said last night?" And I immediately played dumb without a second thought. "I blacked out last night, I genuinely do not remember a thing." A soft laugh came from her end, and the next second she repeated my drunk confession back to me word for word. "Yunian, I want to kiss you, and I want to do unspeakable things with you." I flung my phone across the bed on the spot, and turned red as a boiled lobster. That cool and devastatingly attractive voice of hers was so embarrassing, I wanted to dig a hole and disappear. And she was still slowly twisting the knife from her end of the call, saying, "Mr. Yu, it seems like while I was away, you were really craving me that much."